Good evening, Who Dat Nation, and Merry belated Christmas to our Bayou Blitz family members, especially those of you that did not catch us on our pregame show or last week's episode. I hope you all had a great Christmas, a happy, safe, and just memorable, not only for yourselves but especially your family members. I am Bob Rose. I am one of your co-hosts to your Bayou Blitz podcast, the last one of 2023. And with that, I would like to wish a very happy new year to my friend and co-host, Brendan Boylan. Merry belated Christmas, Brendan.
Yeah, you as well. Hopefully you and your family, and especially Will, had a wonderful Christmas. Slowly learning with like nieces and nephews that honestly, the best part of Christmas when you hit a certain age isn't what you get. It's watching how pumped they get for opening gifts, and even if it's like the smallest thing in the world. My nephew here, I'm in Georgia at my parents right now, but my nephew here got like a little like yellow dump truck or something, from the dollar store, right? Not a super expensive gift or anything. And he like screamed like a child. He is a child, but he screamed like a little girl because of how excited he was to have like this little dump truck. So that's what makes the holiday. This is what I'm slowly learning as you get older.
Yeah, Santa was good to Will. I think Will had a great Christmas. I got a handful of very nice gifts, from my wife, from my son, from his, school shopping, from my oldest daughter, who I get, given the fan base that we've had to deal with, I'm wearing one of the shirts that she got me for Christmas. So thank you, Brianna. And seriously, a lot. I personally have some, personal issues to be depressed about this time of year, especially. But I focused on the great things that I have in my life, and they are many. And certainly not forgetting you folks. In this show that we do in this profession that I'm so lucky to be involved in. So, thank you, folks. And I think I speak for Brendan too. You not only make doing this more pleasurable, and we mention that often, but you make the holidays more fun too. You make these kind of shows, and what has been an extremely downtrodden season, you make it more fun and more pleasurable to come on the air.
Absolutely. The one thing about this that I love, and I've said week in and week out, is the interaction that we get with you guys every week and the consistent people that we see. Jerry's in here already. Glad Christmas was good to you, Jerry. So those are the great things. And like you said, you get to this time of year and counting your blessings is a really important thing, and being able to spend time with family. And last note on Christmas, just a shout out to my Nana. It's the first time she's been able to spend Christmas with us since the pandemic in 2020.
Nice.
It's wonderful to have her around for the holidays, because she did not miss a Christmas for the first like 23, 24 years of my life. And then COVID happened, and then, can't get on planes, and you have that awkward stage after the pandemic. Like, when can we travel? When do I feel comfortable? So, super blessed to have her here. Eric says, "Hey, haven't received the package yet." Update on the package. Bob got it.
I did.
It's signed. It's packed up, taped up, and it's expedited to you. So.
Yeah, Eric, I apologize for that. I received it late Christmas Eve, so obviously it wasn't going out that day or Christmas Day. I had some things with the family going on yesterday, but it is signed by both of us, boxed, taped up, ready to go, and I will be taking it up the road to the post office first thing in the morning. I do apologize for the delay. I guess you could call it hopefully you receive it before New Year's. If not, then it's a New Year's present. So I do apologize for the delay.
Half of it's my fault for not being able to write an address down right. It's just my sloppy handwriting, I guess. You couldn't make it out or whatever, so I'll take as much blame there as well. Let's talk about Saints football. Thursday pre-Christmas was not the early Christmas gift that the New Orleans Saints were looking for at all. And I kind of laugh humorously, because one thing Bob echoed prior to that game was looking at the Saints in crucial games and or primetime games over the last year and a half, 2 years. And the one thing you said, Bob, was flat. Came out flat, came out flat, came out flat. And what do the Saints do again? They come out flat, really flat against a really good football team.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the defense did a little bit there early to kind of keep the Saints around, give the offense some opportunity. And the offense wasn't there. There's a lot of things we can dig into with this game, but I want to dig into this because we haven't talked about this at all. Obviously, the holidays came up, travel schedules, all that stuff. So we haven't had a chance to talk about this. But the one thing that really shocked me, and we talked about this too because I gave you guys betting odds prior to the game on Jimmy Graham anytime touchdown, Jimmy Graham first touchdown, Jimmy Graham last touchdown of the game. Jimmy Graham had 2 offensive snaps, if I am correct in that. And Derek Carr was asked about that. It was like, Jimmy just not a part of the game plan. And he gave some answer along the lines of like, well, he was in there, but those particular plays were drawn up. Like he was a part of the game plan, but they were drawn up to go another way. And I remember hearing that and going back in my notes and being like, wait a minute, like Jimmy did not play, but like not even 5% of the snaps. And I looked and I was like, he played 2 snaps. How's he part of the game plan? But we had harped on and actually praised the Saints over the last, 4 weeks for how they utilized Jimmy Graham on third downs, in the red zone. In a game like this, where the Saints went for it on fourth down, 3 times? And 2 of them early in the ball game, you would think, we're going for it on fourth down, near midfield, or, not deep, or like just into Rams territory. Let's make sure we get 80 on the football field. The play might not be drawn up for him, but he's going to get attention because of who he is, the type of body size he has, the plays he's made for us lately. Let's make sure we get him on the field. Well, he wasn't. He wasn't on the field for any 3 of those fourth down calls. So, Bob, before we get into the coaching disaster that was that football game, because let's face it, I'm not afraid to say it. I know Bob isn't. You guys know how we are here. We like to keep it real. Dennis Allen got smoked in terms of outcoached by Sean McVay. It wasn't even a contest. It was bad. It was like this year's Detroit Pistons team bad, like 26 or 27 straight losses bad. Like it was no contest. But to not utilize Jimmy Graham before we get any further in those particular instances, what was your initial reaction?
I'd love to tell you that I was surprised, but I'm not. I'm not surprised by any dysfunctional thing that this coaching staff does, or the head, the man in charge does or doesn't do. Disappointed, sure. Shocked, no. And it's one of many, many, many things that the coaches have done wrong this season in that game. For instance, let's run Alvin Kamara up the middle into the teeth and right at the best defensive player in football, or certainly the best interior lineman. Rather than get Kamara in space against a Rams linebacking core, that is conditioned to come downhill, not defend sideline to sideline. But that's okay. Let's run Kamara right into the teeth of the defense. Let's design plays for Derek Carr to hold on to the football for longer developing routes, rather than freeing up guys like Kamara, or freeing up big targets like Jimmy Graham in the middle of the field. Just one of so many things. Sean McVay, we talked about it as recently as the pregame show, not to mention, the night before, when we sat down with Jim Everett. The Sean McVay's passing attack has always given Dennis Allen defenses fits because of their crossers, their rub routes, and just the overall design of the passing game. We saw literally zero adjustment to that the entire game. And McVay did the same thing. McVay's offense, Matthew Stafford, they did the same things to the Saints that they've always done to the Saints. And Dennis Allen, unable/unwilling to adjust. Just so many bad decisions that led to them being laughingly outcoached, by a Rams team. And the Saints didn't just lose this game on the sidelines; they lost it on the field too. Piss poor tackling, awful offensive line blocking, drop passes, lack of pressure on Matthew Stafford, inability to stop the run. I'm sure there's more boxes I need to check off here, but I'm pretty sure I just named off 8 or 10 different reasons, why the Saints not only lost this game, but in my opinion, got embarrassed. I mean, those gimme scores at the end, to make the game close. And yeah, I know if they get that onside kick, they could possibly have tied the game. But the game, I never felt the game was really close at all. From about a third of the way, halfway through the second quarter.
I agree. And to find the lone positives, very few positives in this ball game, but lone positives offensively. Seeing Olave get going early was very nice. I thought that was a positive. Get the ball in his hands. And we've said it all year. Getting him involved and active in the offense early is going to directly affect how the rest of the ball game is going to go. In the passing attack, I mean, he's your best receiver on the football field. So I was encouraged to see it was like 3 catches for 34 yards on the first drive for Chris Olave. Great. Second positive in the offense was particularly, it was one of the few times where every piece of the puzzle really fit in terms of pass blocking, route development, play calling, scheming, all those things kind of came together. Was the touchdown pass to Rashid Shaheed.
Mm-hmm.
That was like textbook New Orleans Saints passing attack football over the last 2 decades, right? Clean pocket for Derek Carr. He's able to step up. He has to make one simple read of the safety because of the play design. The safety comes down, leaving all that room behind him for one of the fastest, if not the fastest receiver in the league behind Tyreek Hill. And he's just got to get it somewhere in the general vicinity, and it's a touchdown. You could watch that on the All-22 every day of the week. You could pick out the John Madden pen. You could draw the perfect pocket. You could do everything that I just said, and it's a perfect play. You see that, and you're encouraged just a little bit and going, you know what? Okay. Where's that been all freaking year? Like, that's what we thought we were getting out of Derek Carr in this offense. That was a positive. And then outside of that, it was bad. It was really bad. Kamara, you mentioned running in the teeth of defense, 9 carries for 19 yards. Not pretty. Taysom Hill, who he begged to be a part of the offense. He may not still be 100%, but get him the ball. What's my stat, Bob? What's my stat on Taysom Hill? The last 2 games are a prime example of my stat, where if he carries the ball or touches the ball at least 9 times, the Saints have lost 1 game. I think they're 16-1 or 17-1 if he touches the ball at least 9 times. Combination of rushes and receptions.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, the week before the Rams, he had 1 carry. This week against the Rams, or I guess you can call it last week now, against the Rams, he had 2 carries. He may have had a reception. Let me pull up the box score. No reception. So he had 2 carries. That's not the recipe for winning. And yeah, he might not be 100%, but 4th down? Like, I know one of them was a 4th and 5, which I'm not thrilled with you going for 4th and 5 near midfield at all. We'll get into that.
Mm-hmm.
But on 4th down, you had 3 opportunities on 4th down, and not once did you think, you know what, guys, they might know it's coming, but let's throw Taysom Hill out there and run a QB power, a quarterback sweep, and just see what happens. Not once did that click. That light bulb didn't click. We just talked about Jimmy Graham not being in those sets, but nobody went, you know what, Taysom's pretty good at running the football. What? Not happy with that. Was not happy with a lot of the coaching decisions. Yeah, you're right, Bob. The offensive line played really poorly, horrendously poor. like flashbacks to early in the season.
Yeah.
Running game never got going, got behind, had to play catch up. All those things kind of accumulated, right? And we've talked about this all year, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with this season sometimes. But the coach's job is to put players in the best position to utilize their skills. And with that, typically, if your best players are on the field being utilized in positions for them to best showcase what they're good at, you're going to have success.
Mm-hmm.
And typically, when you have crucial moments throughout a football game, you put those players on the field to showcase what they're good at so you can win football games. And we like to say on paper a lot this year.
Yeah.
We like to say in like Madden terms, like Madden the video game terms. I felt like the coaching job was like handing your Xbox or PlayStation controller to your little cousin on Christmas because he wants to play, and he's just mashing buttons. He's like, 4th and 5, halfback draw, let's do it, or like halfback or fullback dive on 4th and 5. Like, that's what it reminded me of. Is like, what are you doing? So with all that, Bob, particularly the 4th down play calling, because I saw you shake your head when I talked about 4th and 5. What's going through your mind watching this and going, on one hand, at least for me personally, I liked the aggression.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it's like, why are we choosing to be aggressive right now? That's kind of where I was at. What were your thoughts?
Okay. And Dennis Allen got a mountain load of criticism for the 4th down calls, the 2 in the first half in particular, and the onside kick at the end of the game. Many of those people have also criticized Dennis Allen for the last 2 years for being too conservative, too vanilla, too predictable. You can't have it both ways, folks. Now, you can count I will happily count myself in the crowd of him being too vanilla, too predictable, and way too conservative. But I'm not going to be hypocritical and then turn around and criticize him for being aggressive. I actually liked the 4th down gambles, both of them in the first half, and I liked the onside kick at the end of the game. And I'll tell you why. It showed aggression, which any of you that knew me as a coach knows that I'm uber aggressive. And that I've been calling for that kind of aggression from Dennis Allen from the very start. Again, I don't think you can. There's tons of things to be critical about Dennis Allen over, but you can't criticize him for being too aggressive or too conservative, and then flip a coin, flip to the other side of the coin instantaneously and criticize him for the aggression. What you do need to criticize him and Pete Carmichael for when you go for it on those 4th down plays. And here's the reasoning behind it. I think your defense wasn't stopping the Rams, so you were potentially looking at a shootout. You need to get points on the board. And you were in one of the situations you were just outside a reasonable field goal range, and then the other one was a long field goal. Then the question has to be asked: do you have confidence in Blake Groupie anymore? Obviously, if you're going forward in that situation, the answer is probably not. Probably not a high amount of confidence anyway. But if you're going to call those plays, you better have 1 or 2 plays that you are 90 to 95% confident is going to work in those situations. Plays that you're able to stake your job and stake your reputation on. And therein lies the problem, and the microcosm issues with this Saints coaching staff is that they don't. You make the play call, okay. You make the gamble, you decide to gamble, okay. But then you have zero clue on what to do, and then you compound that with piss poor execution on the field. So again, I'm not blaming it all on the coaches here. Just like the onside kick late in the game. People were saying, well, you could have still got a defensive stop. Yeah, you could have, but you haven't for 3 quarters. And it didn't matter whether the Rams had 90 yards to go to get in field goal position or 30 yards to go. At that point, if I'm on the sidelines, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I got to steal a possession here, because at that stage of the fourth quarter, your offense, at least your passing game, is on a little bit of a roll. Granted, the Rams were playing some off-ball coverage, but you were still moving the ball through the air. So if I could steal a possession after my offense had just scored on 2 straight drives to get the ball in the end zone, I got a real shot here. So again, I didn't have a problem with that aggression. And I realized, going back to the 2 fourth-down gambles in the first half, if the execution was better, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. So the players do need to execute that, but the offensive play calling in each of those situations was absolutely horrible. So once again, I myself have a list of things I'm critical of Dennis Allen over. Those 2 gambles on 4th down and then the onside kick are not among my list of complaints.
Yeah, that's where I stand a little different. Is, like I said, on one hand, I really enjoyed the aggression because it was something we hadn't seen. But to your point, one of those could have been a long field goal. So it's like, okay, well, where do you stand with your kicker? And then 2, again, it was like, why be uber aggressive in this game? And the mindset could have been, hey, we need to steal a possession, right? Or we need to put points on the board this drive, or whatever was going on. But I felt, especially early, the game wasn't too far out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's just uber aggressive. Like, if you could get Headley to pin them deep, trust your defense, see what happens. Maybe that's me wanting to be a little bit more conservative, but it was so out of character. I think that's why I wanted it to be more conservative, because that's what we've been used to. It's like, well, what are you doing? This is breaking the mold. And so it was different. Like you said.
But again, Brendan, we and not only just you and me, it's other members of the media, it's the fan base, even even the more intelligent ones, get on Dennis Allen for the definition of insanity, doing the same things over and over and over again and expecting different results. And we hear the damn mantras in his press conferences every single week. Makes me want to vomit. So maybe breaking the mold and going out of character was what was needed at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, it was so out of character. I guess, like I'm saying, it was so out of character. It's like, what the hell are you doing? I don't know. It's like the kid who comes in to pinch run in baseball, and he steals second every single time, and you really need him. And there you go.
I was that guy. Yeah,
I can see it for sure. And so it's like bottom of the 9th. You need to get a guy in the scoring position, and he just doesn't steal. What are you doing? Like, go. That's how I felt. Was like, you would have punted the ball any other game. What are you doing? Like, just punt the ball. But yeah, maybe I'm being a little hypocritical, because I've also said it's been very vanilla this year. It just caught me off guard. And I thought the Saints at that point in time, especially the first one, would have been better off. Seeing if the defense could get the job done. We have a long list. We could talk about that one for a long time. I don't want to spend forever on that. Because face it, I mean, you guys got great analysis on Wednesday going into the game from Jim Everett. We talked pregame. You guys kind of knew what the Saints needed to do, and they did the exact opposite of all of it.
Imagine that.
Yeah, MO for the whole year, right? So this is where the Saints stand at this point in the season. But before we go into that, I did want to give a quick shout out. It's kind of hard just because the camera angle. I don't have my camera. Phillips Cards and Collectibles. They're based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. want to give them a quick shout out. Known them for a little bit. They know I'm a card collector. Bob, a sports card memorabilia collector. So wanted to give them a quick shout out. You could follow them at Phillips Card Shop on Whatnot, if that's your type of thing. You could also just go online, Phillips Cards, and it'll come up the very first thing, phillipscards.com. And follow them on all their social media. If you guys are big sports cards people, they just had a massive poll the other day. One of Bob's least favorite people in the world. But some of you know that in Bowman baseball, it was the first time that Tom Brady has ever appeared on a baseball card because he was drafted by the Montreal Expos. They pulled a Tom Brady gold out of 50. The card is currently valued over $3,000. That could have been one of you lucky folks that could have got in on that and got that card for yourself if you're a big collector. So go give them a follow. They're going to be sending us some New Orleans Saints cards. We may give some of those out.
Good idea.
They're just giving up to us. So after Bob and I pick through what we need for our collection, we'll be happy to give you guys some for yours. But nonetheless, go ahead and give them a follow. I wanted to shout them out, especially here at the Christmas holidays. But let's talk about what's going on in New Orleans with the Saints and their playoff hopes. Let's see, Anna, what's up? Saw you there in the chat. Good to see you back here. But yeah, so Saints playoff hopes. Going into last week, oddly enough, the Saints were still alive in the wild card and the division. And while they are still mathematically alive in both categories, it is not looking good, Bob. It is not looking good at all, especially after the Bucs beat Jacksonville last week. So going into Week 17, Saints play Tampa Bay. This is as simple as it gets. Last 2 games of the year, the Saints have to win. They have to beat Tampa on the road. They got to beat Atlanta at home. With that, they would need Tampa Bay to lose against Carolina the final week of the season to win the division. That's as easy as it gets. When it comes to the wild card, I do not want to go through the different scenarios that could or couldn't. Oh, Bob's got them. You want to go through them? Perfect. Bob, Professor Rose is in the building to break down math for you guys.
I'll just give you guys the tip of the iceberg, because if I start breaking down specific scenarios, we will be here. We will have to sit here on this show until we're ready to go on live for our pregame on Sunday. As Brendan said, if the Saints lose either of their last 2 games, they are officially eliminated. And their simplest path to the playoffs is win their last 2, and Tampa loses to Carolina next week. If that happens, the Saints are the NFC South champions, no matter what the Atlanta Falcons do, folks. Because winning out the regular season means that the Saints will finish with a better record than the Falcons, and Tampa Bay losing to Carolina means that they'll finish with a better record than the Buccaneers. Both of those things have to happen because the Saints lose every conceivable tiebreaker, to both of their divisional opponents. Now, wild card. New Orleans is one of 7 teams with either an 8-7 or 7-8 record. The other 6 teams, the Buccaneers, Falcons, I already laid that out to you folks. The Rams, Seahawks, Vikings, and Packers. The Saints are 0-5 against those 6 teams. Way to come up big, Dennis Allen and company. But anyway, what New Orleans needs to do, they need to flatly finish with better records than 4 of those 6 teams. Now, 2 of those can get taken care of. Or one of those can get taken care of if you win out your last 2. That automatically eliminates the Falcons. The other one would get taken care of if you win your last 2 and the Buccaneers beat Carolina, because Buccaneers are no longer in the wild card conversation. So now you're talking Rams 8-7. So the Rams would need to lose their last 2. Seahawks 8-7. So the Seahags need to lose their last 2. Either one of those 2 teams win one of those games, they're going to take the Saints in a tiebreaker. Green Bay and Minnesota play each other this week. The loser of that is essentially out. Meanwhile, the winner, Green Bay, plays Chicago last week of the season. Minnesota plays Detroit. The winner of that Green Bay Minnesota matchup would have to lose the following game, their regular season finale. And oh, by the way, the Rams finished the year against the Giants and 49ers, while the Seahags finished the year against the Steelers and Cardinals. So basically, there it is. I'm not gonna get into what will happen if this team wins one but not both, and the other team loses both. Flat out, the Saints need to finish with better records, than 4 of those 6 teams, laid out, in front of them: Buccaneers, Falcons, Rams, Seahawks, Vikings, Packers.
And like you said, very easily 2 of those could be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
You take care of your own business, 2 of those are taken care of. And if Tampa loses or wins rather that last week of the season, but you beat Tampa Bay, that still works it out. So oddly enough, the Saints still alive, need lots of help.
Yeah.
But we've seen weirder things happen. So I want to touch on this because we've talked about it a little bit, you and I, Bob, here on the show. And this comes from 2 different comments. So I'm going to throw them up on the screen real quick. First one from Anna. To be honest, I don't see them winning another game. And the second coming from DJ, who says, just lose the last 2 games and don't be a laughingstock. We've had a lot of Saints fans this year particularly say, just keep losing. Just keep losing. Now, the competitor in you, Bob, one of the more competitive people I know, competitor in me would say, no, you want to win every opportunity you get to be on the football field. But realistically, looking at this, would you rather see the Saints lose their last 2 games, get a better draft pick? Do you want to see them compete? And what would your message be to some of these people that are rooting for the Saints to lose these final 2 weeks of the season?
Most of the people that are rooting for the Saints to lose are people that want Dennis Allen absolutely fired, and Pete Carmichael absolutely fired. So I get that. But my response would be, how would you feel if you were the competitor in that locker room? And that's the way that I look at things. I absolutely do not want the Saints to lose either one of these games. I want them in the playoffs. Yeah, I know Dennis Allen's right. Hell, I'm the one that posts it every week. I know Dennis Allen's record against teams with 500 or better records. And obviously they're going to be playing, winning records in the playoffs. It's not good. They're showing on the field, not good. But you can't win a championship, or you don't have a chance to win a championship unless you're in the playoffs. And we've seen teams go on runs, unlikely runs in the past. Even a deep playoff run. We've covered this team and or been fans of this team for deep playoff runs. 2018, 2011. Those were fun years. And I would like. The reality is, every team but one finishes their year with a loss. More often than not, that loss is kind of a bitter pill to take into the off season. So knowing that that's your likelihood, no matter when it happens, is difficult enough. But I can't sit here in good conscience and say that I wouldn't want a chance to compete for the championship. Again, I know what kind of product that this has been on the field. I mean, hell, I'm forced to watch more of this than than the average person, because I got to rewatch film, no matter how bad the performance is, for these shows and for these analytical articles. So believe me, I know what you're talking about. But again, the competitor in me, I don't want to ever lose. I get you want a higher draft pick. I get that you want Dennis Allen gone. But what if this team suddenly catches fire? You people that are saying, oh, this team is so talented, they should be competing for a championship. Well, guess what? If they sneak into the playoffs, you're competing for a championship. So you got your chance. So I absolutely want to win both games and have a shot and try to go to the playoffs. Now, if you lose to Tampa Bay this week and you're out, at that point, I'm never going to say tank and intentionally lose the season finale against the Falcons. But at that point, I get a little bit crazy. With maybe I play Jake Haener. Maybe if Kendre Miller is healthy, I let him tote the rock a lot. those kind of things. I design different plays for Rashid Shaheed. I get Jimmy frickin' Graham in the end zone and what's probably his last NFL game. Those kind of things. I'm playing the young players, Foskey, Jordan Howden, those guys, Peyton Turner, if he's back healthy. But other than that, I'm looking at this week's game against Tampa Bay, like I'm a coach on the staff, or like I'm a player in the locker room. I want to win this thing. I want all hands on deck. And as long as I have a chance, and I'm mathematically alive for the playoffs, you better believe I'm going full steam ahead. That's my mentality. That's my philosophy.
I'm the same way. What kind of crazy story would it be after everything that's gone on this year if the Saints were to somehow make the playoffs, have a deep playoff run, and Derek Carr plays really well? Like bizarro world type of stuff, but it'd be a really interesting storyline. If you're talking about the analyst in me, the person that has watched this team week in and week out, I'm with Anna, who said, I don't see them winning another game. And she did clarify. It's not that she wants them to lose. She just really doesn't want to win the last 2 weeks.
I wouldn't be surprised if they got swept out either. I half expect it, to be truthful with you.
I almost expect them to lose to Tampa and put up a fight against Atlanta because, even if you're going to go out, you're out, go beat your division rival at home. That's kind of what I expect. I expect them to split the last 2 weeks. I'm kind of with you, Bob, though. I said it the other day. I said, man, if the Saints lose to Tampa, what's Jake Haener doing? Just chilling? Is he ready to go? Just see what's going on and just get weird, especially last week of the season. Those are fun. Get weird. See guys we've never seen before. Names, elevate everyone possible from the practice squad that we've never heard of. Guy signed yesterday. He's starting at wide receiver 1. It would be like that COVID game a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
The Ian Book start is just call up dudes that we've never heard of. Let's get weird.
You're job auditioning at that point. Do you have another Brock Purdy and Jake Haener? You don't know until he gets on the field. So if he's ready, mentally, if he has the game plan, the playbook, relatively digested, do it. Show us why you valued Kendre Miller in the 3rd round if he's healthy. Show us why you valued Isaiah Foskey in the 2nd round if he's healthy. Design a game plan around A.T. Perry a little bit more. Those kind of things. See what you have from these middle and late round draft choices, so that way, whether it's Dennis Allen or someone else, kind of has a better feel for what you really have at the back half of this roster going into the offseason.
You're absolutely right. I want to touch on this before we get into a little bit of a preview of the game. Is I know there's lots of you out here, and this is me going a little off script. There's a lot of you guys out here that want the Saints to finish with a poor record, finish with a top 10 pick. They very well could. And a lot of you guys, I guess you guys haven't learned that the Saints don't draft LSU players. But I'm seeing a lot of let's go grab the Heisman winner. And it's great theory, but 2 problems with that theory. And I hate to be – and if I'm wrong, you guys can clip this, send it to me on draft day. I don't care. You guys know that. But I'm telling you, on December 27th, 23, before the season's even over, as much as I would also – and how many years have I said this, Bob? How many years has Drew been retired now? That's the answer. I've said for a couple of years now, I would love to see the Saints grab a guy who has the ability to scramble, has a good arm. I thought, though, it didn't end well in terms of, the win-losses were fine, but it didn't end well in terms of development. I thought the Taysom Hill experiment was fun, right? Because it was something I had not seen in New Orleans in a very long time, if ever. A guy that you could draw up plays for in that way. His record was pretty good as the starting quarterback, but the arm strength, the arm talent, not there. Taysom's clearly better in the role that he is, but I thought it was a fun experiment. Sometimes you just got to do that. You got to have fun. That's what the game's for. But unfortunately, even if the Saints finish with a top 10 pick, there's 2 reasons why Daniels is not coming to New Orleans, as much as some of us would like that to happen. A, Saints don't draft LSU guys. It is a weird it is like a weird nuance with this franchise. It really is, because I don't understand it. Because Will Clapp was the last one, right? 6th round. Do we have to go all the way back to Devery Henderson before that?
No, there was I forget who it was, but it was a day 3 pick. Sean Payton drafted 2 LSU players during his tenure. The other was I want to say a linebacker, and I don't remember who. But yeah, you got to go back to like 2007 or 2008 to find it. Other than that, those were the only 2 LSU players Sean Payton ever drafted. So you would have to go back all the way to Devery Henderson to find number 3, and Devery was what? 2004 or 2005, one of those two.
Somewhere in there, and was a 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
But, that doesn't happen. And 2, you guys know who have watched this show and are here every week. I'm looking at the Jimmys. I'm looking at the M's. I'm looking at the Jerrys, the Erics, the DJs. All of you guys know where we stand on Derek Carr. It has been a really bad year, and we all had higher expectations and higher hopes for Derek Carr. Would I like to see a change at quarterback? Yeah, especially this season since he was hurt at points. Yes, I would have loved to see Jameis play, just to see what else is out there. It didn't happen. So what makes you think that this franchise, I'm not just talking about Dennis Allen, right? I'm talking about Mickey. I'm talking about Gale. I'm talking about other people who make big decisions within this franchise. What makes you think that if they let him play with broken ribs, let him play with an AC sprain multiple times, 2 concussions in the course of 3 weeks or 4 weeks, what makes you think if the Saints lose the last 2 weeks of the season, that they're going to sit there with their draft boards and go, all right, guys, we just paid a dude $150 million. Almost fully guaranteed. It's like $100+ million fully guaranteed, right? We just paid a guy. We just wrote a really fat check. Let's go draft his replacement. Like, that's not going to happen, right? I don't foresee a situation where the Saints spend that high of a 1st round pick on a guy to sit behind Carr for potentially another 2 or 3 years. Potentially. Now, if Carr comes out next year and absolutely sucks, we're having a completely different story. But I don't see the Saints doing the Aaron Rodgers thing. I don't see the Saints doing the Jordan Love thing. That's just me, but those are my 2 biggest reasons the Saints are not drafting the Heisman Trophy winner. That is just me. Thoughts, comments, concerns, Bob Rose?
Yeah, I'll go a broader scope, and I won't just include Daniels in the conversation. I will just say 1st round quarterback, because you're also talking about Caleb Williams, Derek Moy, Daniels, Michael Penix could sneak into the 1st round. Bo Nix will be a 1st rounder. I feel like I'm missing one here. But I'll use a broader scope rather than just Jaden Daniels, because frankly, and there's not too many LSU fans, and I respect the purple and gold. I do. I know what you're saying about Daniels, but the fact is, you would be saying the same exact things about Bo Nix, Michael Penix, or Moy. If he were the one in the LSU uniform. That's just the way most of you LSU fans are. And I love your loyalty till the bitter end, but that's just fact. But anyway, back to the quarterback, as I pissed off all the LSU fans.
Just viewership just dropped. So, we're down to 0.
Right. Hey, at least I didn't do this when I mentioned LSU fan. I could have, and I didn't.
You did, kind of.
No, only as a hypothetical, though. So that doesn't count. As far as the quarterback issue goes, who's your coach? Because if it's Dennis Allen, and folks, do not rule out Dennis Allen coming back. I don't want it, but don't rule it out. If it's Dennis Allen and they ain't drafting they aren't even considering drafting a quarterback. Derek Carr is his man, and they're going to go down on that Titanic together. If it's another coach, then, and I've said this since midseason, if it's another coach, then that coach should have 100% right to pick who his quarterback is going to be. Wouldn't you agree with that, Brendan?
Absolutely. Well, and
Okay.
that's not just the pro level. That's every level. Look at college
absolutely.
Portals right now.
So I mean, if you bring in another coach and that coach is insistent that Derek Carr is not my guy, and you're in position to get one of the quarterbacks that I just mentioned, and that's who that coach wants. We talked about that. You and I believe Alan was in on the conversation too during the off season. That I know Derek Carr has signed a 4-year contract. Financially, you're only tied to him for 2 years. In other words, one more year after this. So while I have said that Derek Carr will be on the Saints roster almost because you don't have a financial choice next year, that doesn't mean that Derek Carr has to be your starter. If a new, hypothetically, again, if a new coach comes in and says, and I'm just going to throw this name out there, if Bo Nix is on the board, that's the quarterback that I want for my system. That coach should have 100% right to bring in Bo Nix if it's possible to bring in Bo Nix. Let him compete with Carr. At worst, he sits behind Derek for a year. Then you can move on from Derek. Because it's not many times that a franchise has an opportunity to grab whoever they feel is a franchise quarterback. And folks, isn't that what we have been yelling about the New Orleans Saints? And even going back to the final years of Drew Brees' career, that Sean Payton and this organization never even prepared, and Brennan and I have said it many times, never even prepared for the day that Drew retired. Well, now you have maybe an opportunity to rectify that. Yet it's with a roster with so many other glaring holes. Offensive line, both interior and tackle. Tight end. Although unless you're in a position to draft Brock Bowers, you're not going to use a first rounder on a tight end. Off-ball linebacker, pass rusher, especially edge rusher, safety. The list of the list of needs on this team is many, and you only have 2 picks in the first 100 as it stands right now to get it done with. If a new coach sees the opportunity to grab a franchise quarterback, though, I don't rule it out. I agree with you, though. I do not think it'll be Jaden Daniels because of the pressure that comes with an LSU player, let alone a quarterback into a very angry and impatient fan base. It's just a recipe for disaster.
You're absolutely right. We're seeing the same page here when it comes to that situation. There's more conversations. Bob and I, we love the draft process. We'll have a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, but for the last 5-10 minutes, let's talk Saints Bucs. Obviously, earlier this year, the Saints were bad. Shocker, right? The Saints came out flat. They didn't play well in that football game, and they got embarrassed at home. And it was, I think at that point, we should have started seeing the writing on the wall if we hadn't already. That was one of those wake-up games where this team is not who we thought they were.
Yeah.
Going into the season. We talked about way back then, J.C. Allen, right? He joined us with the Bucs on Sports Illustrated and was talking about how well Baker Mayfield had played for the Bucs this year.
Mm-hmm.
To take that a step further, there's reports now that there is mutual interest from both parties for Mayfield to sign an extension to be the foreseeable quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bob, I liked Baker in the draft process. I didn't like him enough to make him the number 1 overall pick. I remember that senior year in particular, seeing him be a guy that was mocked in the 2nd and 3rd round.
Yeah.
Up to the late 1st. I was like, that's probably where he belongs. They're in the mid to the late 1st. And then there was this huge overhauling spike to the number 1 pick. And I was like, whoa, guys, I don't know about all that. But I really liked Baker on tape. I really liked Baker's playoff year with Cleveland. And we talked about that back to what was making Baker successful this year. We're seeing a lot of similarities in offensive schemes and styles to the success he had with the Cleveland Browns. We've continued to see it. Mike Evans has been red hot. What makes this Tampa Bay offense scary, especially now that they have all this time with each other and that growing chemistry throughout the season?
And that's just it. They've developed the chemistry throughout the season. They've gotten the blocking up front. Early in the year, their interior offensive line was decimated by injuries. Two of those three players are back, have been back. So they've managed to get some continuity up front. The play calling for Baker has been, most games has been right on spot. You need to move Baker around, get him in a moving pocket, support him with a running game, which Tampa Bay, looking at the numbers, they're only 30th in the National Football League in rush yards per game, 32nd in average, rushing average. But Rachaad White has run very, very well in recent weeks. So it's no coincidence that Tampa Bay is on a 4-game winning streak because of that. You're not forcing Baker Mayfield to drop back and throw the ball 40 to 45 times a game. You're able to mix in a little bit of balance. Therefore, you set up the play action. When you set up play action and you have wide receivers like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and an underrated, athletic tight end and Cade Otton, you're going to be able to move the football pretty well. And that's what Tampa Bay has been able to do. They have not put everything on Baker Mayfield's shoulders and said, "You're the number one pick, so you should be a superhero and win this game, or carry us this season." They've not forced Baker Mayfield to do that, and thusly, Tampa Bay has moved the ball reasonably well. They've controlled the clock, and most importantly, they put points on the board when the team needed it most.
And remember, this is a team that's on a 4-game win streak, and the defense, while they haven't played great, they're only surrendering about 20 points per game over that 4-game win streak. Bob, they beat some good teams. Maybe not great teams, but this Tampa Bay team over the last 4 has beat some, we'll say one good team and maybe some mediocre teams, not bad, but we'll go through the list. So they barely escaped the Panthers about a month ago. 21-18. They beat the Falcons 29-25. Say what you will about those 2 games. Divisional opponents are always tough in the NFC South. Mm-hmm. You know that. I know that. You guys viewing know that. They go up to Lambeau Field. Never an easy place to play. They knock off the Packers 34-20. And then you guys saw this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I still think are a good team. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe they're mediocre. I still think they're a good football team. And I think they're going to be a team that's going to be really dangerous over the next few years, especially if Trevor Lawrence can stay healthy. But it's a team. What did Jim say last week, right? This is the time where you start, separating the pretenders and the contenders. It's the team that gets hot at the right time, right next to the Los Angeles Rams. Tampa Bay might be the hottest team in football right now. Besides that defense, not spectacular, but only surrendering 20 points a game. That offense is closer to 30. What's scary about that defense, Bob?
The speed. The speed that they have at linebacking core. Devin White and Levante David. And Levante David, for my money, he's a Hall of Famer. He is that good. They're getting interior pressure. They're clogging, clogging rushing lanes, and getting interior push from Vita Vea, which is great. But Cansey, their first round choice, first round pick out of the University of Pitt. He's finally been able to stay healthy, and he's creating some disruption as well. Earlier this year, Tampa Bay cornerbacks Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis, they both missed some time with injuries. Well, those 2 guys, just like the interior offensive line, those 2 guys are back healthy now, and we know that they have the ability to make plays against offenses. And on the plus side of them being, when they were hurt, that allowed Christian Izien and Zion McCollum to get some much-needed reps, both very young corners. Well, now they're seasoned going into the stretch in a playoff run. Antoine Winfield, I will take Antoine Winfield over any other safety in the NFL. And I have said that now for a couple of years. Antoine, he just does everything that I would ever want a safety to be. He's a ball hawk. He's an outstanding run defender. He can step into the slot. He's fluid enough and agile enough, to cover a lot of wide receivers or tight ends in man coverage if asked. So, that secondary, extremely underrated, and the run defense is really going to get after you. We know that about Tampa. And recently, early in the year, they weren't pressuring the passer a whole lot. But recently, they're starting to rev up that pressure along the edge again. And we know what that can do for the entire defense. We saw the Buccaneers shoulder a Super Bowl run off of the defensive performance and their pass rushers, especially along the edge a couple of years ago. They're starting to slowly resemble that defense again.
I got to throw this up because it made me chuckle. Dean said the Saints have no right to win this game, so they'll probably win. Fair. That's accurate. I don't see it. This is a really tough matchup for New Orleans. I want to touch on this before we hit a couple daughter drops and head out of here. But last point on this game before daughter drops, going all the way back to week 4, feels like a lifetime ago. It's been a long season.
Yeah,
long season. But that Saints team inside the Superdome against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a little banged up defensively as well, missing some key pieces in that game, failed to find the end zone. It was 3 Blake Groupie field goals. Bob, what's the Saints' offenses? What's going to be their biggest problem against Tampa Bay? And Tampa Bay over the last 4 years has really been a kryptonite to New Orleans.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, they have. And in the last 3 matchups, specifically against the Buccaneers, the Saints were manhandled physically on both sides of the ball. That was particularly surprising back in week 4 defensively. They had a hard time stopping the run. Tampa Bay, ran the ball at least well enough to maintain balance and control possession, set up play action. So you have to stop the run. You have to make Baker Mayfield beat you, and you have to lock down their receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You have the cornerbacks to do it, but that secondary, the defense as a whole, but that secondary just is coming off an awful performance. So is their confidence shaken? That's going to be a big question. Offensively, you need to get Alvin Kamara involved. You talk about all the time about getting Chris Olave, Taysom Hill involved early. And while that's crucial, you got to get Alvin Kamara involved early. And I'm not talking about the fullback dive plays from Tecmo Bowl, to get him a couple carries on the board. I'm talking about get him outside the numbers, get him in space, get him involved as a receiver. Test that Tampa Bay defense, from sideline to sideline, spread them out, and then hit him with a Taysom Hill up the gut. Move Vita Vea around or run away from him. Because you're going to be able to do that a little bit more if you can get Kamara on the edge and spread out those linebackers a little bit. But first and foremost, again, just like we talked about defensively, offensively, your offensive line has to set a tone, and show that they could keep Derek Carr upright and show that they could get even just a little bit of movement in the running game.
All right, let's hit dot or drop. We'll get more into the Saints and Bucs matchup for pregame on Sunday, New Year's Eve game. So we'll see you guys hopefully one more time before the new year to be able to wish you and yours a nice ringing into 2024. Hopefully with the Saints win as well. Bob, dot or drop? Oh, this one kind of pains me. But and maybe it's a little premature. Maybe it's one I should hold for the last week, but we'll just go ahead and throw it. Dot or drop? Jimmy Graham gets the end zone one more time before he likely retires at the end of the season.
Is that a dot or drop for this week or anytime in the final 2 games?
Anytime in the final 2.
Anytime in the final 2 games, it's a dot. I think, Dennis Allen was around when Jimmy Graham was around. So, I mean, those are roots that go way back. Say what you will about Dennis Allen. He does recognize, that there's loyalty there's a vein of loyalty that runs through this whole organization, sitting, from the top of ownership with Mrs. Benson through the front office and Mickey Loomis, all the way down through, bringing back veterans like Graham for one last hurrah, Malcolm Jenkins for one last hurrah a couple years ago, things like that. I think Dennis Allen recognizes that, and I think they're going to do what they can to get Jimmy Graham in the end zone. Frankly, for continuity's sake, for chances of victory's sake, I think it should happen a couple of times. But I see Jimmy Graham at least scoring a touchdown against the Atlanta Falcons in the season finale and him dunking over the goalpost. That's going to happen at the very least. So I will dot your question.
I hope so. That was kind of where I was thinking too, is, he keeps talking about, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Just a matter of when. you got to score in your what's thought to be your final NFL game and give that one to the fans. So,
daughter drop, and I'm going to need you to approach it like you're either general manager or owner of the New Orleans Saints, not Brendan Boylan, not analyst, not fan. Daughter drop. The decision has already been made behind closed doors. Dennis Allen will be fired at the end of this season.
I'm going to drop that. And it kind of goes back to what you just said. Loyalty throughout the organization. You've said it a couple times, even in some of the worst seasons and stretches and eras of coaching in New Orleans. Very rarely, if ever, has it ended after 2 years. It's always been, we'll give them the start of the third year. Ditka was fired in the middle of the third year. Was that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
no, Ditka made it through all 3 years.
Yeah, fired at the end of the third year. So, I mean, you want a perfect example of like a bad era of Saints football. That's it. As much as it pains me, because I would like to see a change, and I know a lot of you want to see a change as well. I have zero reason to believe that Dennis will not be involved next year. Did I say that right?
I think so.
Dennis will be around next year. I have full faith that Dennis will be around next year, whether we like it or not. So, no, I don't think there's been a decision. If you had worded it the opposite way, I probably would have dotted it. Has there been an internal discussion decision that he's going to be back next year? Yes, I think that discussion has already happened. I think he knows his job's safe, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. Because if I'm the one making the decision, frankly, my decision has already been made, regardless of the outcome of these final 2 games, is that I'm moving in a different direction next year at head coach. But I'm with you. And I'll go back. The decision would have been made barring a miraculous deep playoff run. At that point, you'd bring them back. But obviously, that's unlikely to happen. But yeah, I'm 50-50 right now. I understand the loyalty aspect. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand it. And I have this sneaky feeling that both the Benson family, Gail Benson and Mickey Loomis, are at the very least 50-50 on the fence as far as Dennis Allen's job security right now.
I think as long as the last 2 games aren't absolutely humiliating, he'll be around. Jimmy does throw up a good point. He said there's no way Pete survives. That'll be the price for Dennis return. I actually agree with that. I think Pete will be gone.
Yeah.
Dennis will bring in his own offensive coordinator, and that will be the last straw.
Yeah, and we'll hear about, this is the offensive coordinator that knows how to use their blah, blah, blah. I don't even want to get into it right now, but yeah, I frankly see that being the most likely scenario, especially if they do as well as even split the last 2 games.
Right. All right, last one for you. Daughter drop. Derek Carr gets outdueled by Baker Mayfield again this week.
You said outdueled?
Outdueled.
From a yardage aspect, no. I'll drop that part. I think that because Derek's thrown for a lot of yards. I mean, 6 300-yard games this year. So some of them might have been empty yards, but if you're talking outdueled as far as on the scoreboard, and this will give you an inkling for where I'm leaning for prediction wise on Sunday. If you're talking outduel wise as far as more touchdowns, more points on the board, I'll dot that as Baker Mayfield will outduel or at least outscore Derek Carr's team. I'll dot it, sadly.
Ooh. Yeah, that does give me a little bit of an
Yeah.
inkling.
Daughter drop. Let's go on the opposite side of the battle lines. Mike Evans without Marshawn Lattimore this Sunday. Daughter drop. Mike Evans goes off and has at least 130 yards receiving against the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I've said this a lot of years. It's a nice rivalry, not just with Marshawn, but just the Saints in general. He's having a hell of a football year. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's done things nobody else has done.
Okay. I hate Mike Evans as a human being, so that's why I have a difficult time with it.
It hurts, but he's a hell of a football player. He's in the end zone 13 times this year. I think it's like 1,100, maybe 1,200 yards so far. You want to talk about being on a heater, like we talked about the Bucs playing really good football right now. Mike Evans is on a heater. Those last 4 or 5 games, he's been insane. So if you guys are in your fantasy football championships and you have Mike Evans, there's the reason you're in your fantasy football championships.
No, I got eliminated coming off of a bye as the first overall seed. I got eliminated thanks to a combined 20 points from Travis Etienne and Alvin Kamara. So take the PG-13 rating off.
Oh, there we go. Well, okay. Can we quickly blur that out? I'm just kidding. I don't think he gets. I don't think he gets to 130. I think it's more likely that he gets somewhere close to 100 and gets in the end zone twice. That's kind of where I think he's going to have. That's where he's going to do his damage, because the Bucs have so many other weapons to get them in the red zone, and then let him succeed in the place where he has really made his money this year. So I'm going to drop that he gets to 130. I will dot that he's going to have a good football game. So with that, Bob, you got some articles to write between now and Sunday. Where can everybody follow you and the Saints News Network and all the wonderful stuff you do covering this football team? And as you said earlier, like putting yourself through some tough times and fighting through the pain of rewatching tape. Where can people, thank you for all of that?
Yeah, folks, and remember, we're trying to put money in our pocket, and you reading these things helps do that. So please, and if you catch someone on Facebook in particular commenting in one of these groups when it's obvious they did nothing more than read a title or look at the damn picture, go after them, because I don't got the energy to anymore. Go after them and tell them what's what. Anyway, you can follow me, Bob Rose, Facebook, at BobbyR2613 on Twitter. All of my work, along with those of John Hendricks, Kyle Mosley, and Ross Jackson at the Saints News Network, at Saints News on Twitter. And I had my first Buccaneer preview article coming out, about noonish today. Gunning for about that same time tomorrow. I'm having a hard time getting motivated because of the Christmas holiday, but you'll get them. So stay tuned for that. And make sure that you are continuing to bring fans over to our Bayou Blitz Twitter page at Bayou Blitz Pod and Bayou Blitz Facebook group. Y'all have done a great job of beefing up those numbers. Brendan and I keep hinting to you, that once we reach a certain level, we haven't decided what that level is yet, but once we reach a certain level, we're going to do exclusive content for Bayou Blitz members only. So bring over NFL fans, especially Saints fans, friends, family members, etc. This is your group. You're in charge of it, and you've done such a terrific job so far, and we thank you for it.
Well, see, that's the wonderful thing about streaming, Bob, is right now we stream out to Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitter. The artist formerly known as Twitter. I think it's my favorite way I've heard it. But when we get to whatever that level is, all we have to do is hit StreamYard Live, only Bayou Blitz Facebook, and that's it. So guys, get in there. We're so close to 2,000 in there. We're at 1.9. Okay, so we're really looking forward to hitting that 2,000 mark, and hopefully by next year, hitting you guys with some exclusive content. For myself, you can follow me on virtually everything at BT Boylan, like Bob said. Bayou Blitz group on Facebook, at Bayou Blitz Pod on X, or the artist formerly known as Twitter. For myself, for Bob Rose, we hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah if you're in the middle of Kwanzaa or another holiday season. We hope you guys are enjoying this holiday season, and we will see you guys right before the new year on Sunday for a preview of the New Orleans Saints and what is a do-or-die matchup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So until then, hope you guys continue to chow down on leftovers and cookies and all the things that are super bad for you. Bob, that's you included, all right? I don't know how much of a sweet tooth you have, but it better be chowing down on some cookies over the next couple of days. I'm sure it is. But we hope you guys find some peace, spread love, practice positivity, and we'll see you Sunday. Saints Bucs pregame show with the Bayou Blitz. See you then.